Nadine Spencer is president of the Black Business and Professional Association, and Len Carby is on the steering committee for the Federation of Black Canadians. Thanks to both of you for joining me today. And Len, let me start with you. Talk a little bit about what this weekend's events and especially what today's meetings were all about on Parliament Hill. You've been meeting with ministers and federal officials. What's the message that you've been trying to get across?
Great. Well, first of all, thanks for having us. As you mentioned, I'm on the steering committee for the Federation of Black Canadians, which is part of the organizing group that brought individuals from all across the country representing different organizations to basically talk with their federal representatives about issues which are important to our Black community. There are several of our ministers who took meetings with us today. Today was actually record-setting in terms of the number of individuals who are on the Hill having these conversations with ministers. It's important for us to engage with our leaders and to let them know the issues which are important to us as a Black community. And so that was what today was about, and we kind of tacked that on to the end of the Black Canadian Summit, which happened over the 2 days prior. So today is wrapping up our activities, recognizing also Black History Month.
Now, 1 year ago, the Prime Minister talked a lot about more federal action to help end systemic racism and discrimination, do more to help the Black community in terms of jobs and equal opportunities. 1 year later, how would you say that effort has been unfolding?
Well, one of the challenges that we recognize about the bureaucracy with the federal government is that when things are announced by our political leaders, it takes some time to make its way through the system. And sometimes the original announcement, by the time it gets down to the community, the look and feel of what was announced changes somewhat. So we want to be at the table having conversations with our bureaucrats, with also our politicians who initially made these commitments to our community and holding them accountable for those commitments. Where things are right now, there are some wins. We got the International Decade of People of African Descent. That was recognized by our Prime Minister. That was a great first start. There was a mention of funds for the Black community mentioned in the federal budget. But again, having those conversations with ministers around how they can help us ensure that that announcement actually gets down to our community and those dollars are actually targeted to the programs that we're talking about and not just get lost in the bureaucratic discussions and get petered out into, well, it's no longer a Black issue, it's more a multicultural issue. If the announcement was for the Black community, we'd like to see those funds impacting programs in our Black community.
Yeah, and also I want to add to that there needs to be a strategy for awareness, a broad awareness campaign that lets everybody know that this exists and getting feedback from the community, weighing from the community, and just letting everybody know that this is available.
And Nadine Spencer, you're approaching these meetings from the business perspective. What is the message that you're trying to get across to politicians here in Ottawa?
Okay. Well, the Black Business and Professional Association is around to enable Black businesses. At the end of the day, Black businesses must succeed, and we must succeed because we hire Black youth. We hire Black youth, and sometimes it's their first job experience, so they can go into what we call mainstream. Because Black companies hire Black youth, and so it's important in the meeting that I'll be attending later on that we talk about strategies for enabling Black businesses so we can grow and in turn enable Black youth success.
So how does that tie in? Because there are meetings today on not just on jobs, on economic opportunity, but also on the justice system, on policing,
on social services and things like that.
On the prison system. Yes. So. Is that one of your key messages today, that relationship between economic opportunity and maybe addressing some of those social issues?
Well, it's interesting because economic opportunity, without a doubt, will address those social issues. If Black youth are engaged and employed and have a purpose, a lot of the other issues that we're here to address today in terms of the socioeconomic things will not be a part of the agenda, if you will. So we need to enable Black businesses succeed so we can enable our youth.
And what do you believe from a federal perspective in terms of concrete action do you think would help do this? We're in an election year. We're coming up on another federal budget. Are there specific programs that you think would help in that regard?
Programs funding, we just talked about funding that was made to the Black community. We would really like to see this come to fruition, because that's the way we can really take the next steps of having programs and having funds to deliver these programs to enable our community.
And Len, let me close on this with you. We heard Liberal MP Greg Ferguson on the weekend talk about that even he's frustrated that there's been a lack of progress on some of these promises made. Now we're heading into an election year. As we just talked about, people will be able to show their preferences at the ballot. How do you see the next few months unfolding in terms of your optimism about whether some of those promises made are actually going to come to fruition before this Parliament dissolves and all of a sudden we're in a federal campaign?
Well, it's part of the reason why we're here. As a Federation of Black Canadians, we are positioning ourselves by talking to our community partners about the follow-up conversations that need to happen after today. So it's not just a meeting on the Hill where we're having some ask and no one follows up on the delivery on those. And that's where the Federation of Black Canadians is positioning itself to do that kind of follow-up and to keep that conversation. And also going forward, there are going to be many opportunities for our Black community to get involved with their local representatives, be involved in campaigns, holding their feet to the fire. Some of the promises being made today in our meetings, our community will be aware of them. And so as the platforms are being talked about out there, we want to be sure that these are the issues that are going to be talked about during the election campaign, and we want to be sure that after the election, and whatever the government looks like at that time, that those issues remain on the forefront and are not forgotten. And that's the follow-up piece that's required. So we want political engagement. We want our people to be out there and voting and holding our representatives to the promises that are being made.
Okay, well, we'll keep watching. Thanks so much for your time, Nadine Spencer
thank you for having
and
us.
Len Carby.
Thanks for having us.